Hi everyone, welcome to your product update. I'm Chris Gold, the head of product at Workflow Max by BlueRock. Let's get right into it today. So we're going to flick over and go into the product and we can showcase some of the things we've been working on. One of the ones we've recently deployed is the ability to remember your last custom template or standard template that you've used. So for those of you who, you probably didn't even realize this was a feature of Workflow Max 1, but it will just be remembering your last template that you use. So you can see here the last template I used on this invoice was the invoice template. Your default selections, if that's your standard, it will also remember whatever your default selections were. Whenever you generate a quote or an invoice or a job brief, anything like that, it will be remembering whatever the last template you used was there. Those of you who are Workflow Max Premium subscribers, if you do use the Xero integration, we've set that up now so you can import invoices into Workflow Max. So if you have the same reference as a job number in your product, you can bring those back into Workflow Max going forward. If we jump back into invoices here, another thing that we have added, we know that there were a few of you mentioning that for invoices that were in the product that you had already approved, you didn't have the ability to see, I guess, the timesheet information and sort of the dates there, and it was appearing in a strange order. So that is now in chronological order there. I can go back into the timesheets for the invoice there to have a look at those details there against a particular invoice. Another one that we've added is just negative quantities on invoices. So if you are creating a particular invoice in there, we know that you might need to create a credit line item. So if you go in and create a new invoice in the product, you can see that we can add a cost. I can go in there now and put a -1 quantity, and that can pull through onto the invoice there. Choose an existing cost, and we can save and add that. And you'll see that will pull through with that -1 value. So we know there's quite a few of you who do use this feature. If you've got a credit that you need to apply to an invoice or a bill for that matter, you can now enter those negative quantities. So those should be pulling through and syncing through to Xero as well. One of the ones we've also added in is the job cost import. So you can see if you go to the settings page here, there is that import screen. We will be adding all of the other imports from this screen as well. You can see at the moment, if you click on that import button, there is only the job cost data type available at the moment, but we'll obviously want to expand that to allow you to be importing from a whole range of different areas there into the product. Before I jump into actually doing a live sort of demo of the job costs, I'll just flick over to the spreadsheet that I've prepared here. So you can see that we've got, this is a job cost sample, and you can see I've got most of the data you'd expect to be able to actually import a job cost onto a job in Workflow Max. So we've got things like the job number, the cost name, unit cost, unit price, date, the billable flag, is it billable, is it not, quantity, method, so you can import estimated or actual costs onto the job. And lastly, the type here, which is service. So in Workflow Max 2, we do have the concept of stock items and service items. I don't have anything populated for the supplier, the cost note, phase, cost code. Those are all optional fields as well. And you'll see when I import this in, we can actually see what fields are mandatory versus what might be optional. So we'll just go back over to Workflow Max. We'll click in and just find that file to upload, open that. And then the other thing we'll be adding in is just the ability to manage these imports and have a bit more flexibility. So things like update, being able to update existing records that are already in the product versus just create, and then also the ability to delete in bulk in certain areas. You'll be able to do that. But right now, it's just about creating those job costs on a particular job. So we'll hit next. And you can see what's happened here is we've got our fields where it's mapped everything that's in Workflow Max, and it's tried to match it up to the column name that we have in that CSV file. What we'll do here is if it's an exact match, it will line it up for you and automatically match that. You can see here that our date column hasn't matched perfectly, so it's asking us what column in my spreadsheet there should we match this one to. So I'll just go through and find my date field there. That will pull it through. And then we've got this handy sort of example here where it's actually pulling through the first line of your spreadsheet. So you can see what that data looks like to make sure that it is mapped correctly. All of these other fields have mapped for us, I believe, except for estimated and actual. I think that column heading was method in my spreadsheet. So that's a good thing as well. There's a bit of flexibility here. You can use sort of any CSV spreadsheet and then just map it to these columns. It doesn't have to be perfectly aligned to what the Workflow Max fields are. You can sort of import from any other system, and you don't have to change the headings and just map them around in here once you get in. You can see as well that the asterisks at the end of these fields are those mandatory fields. So for this job cost import, we need to have a job number in the spreadsheet. We need to have a cost name, need to have a date for that cost, unit cost, price, sort of all those fields that you'd expect to have. Phases, suppliers, cost codes, optional, cost notes, optional as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click the next button there. And from here, you can see while that is importing, it's actually validating our data. So if there's any issues with what you've actually supplied in that spreadsheet, if you've used something funny, like where we're expecting a number and you've put someone's name, this is where it might say there's an error with a particular row in that spreadsheet. You can then import the successful rows, and you can also download those rows that had errors. So if you're importing 100 rows, you just want to see that particular row that had an error, you can download that row and have a look at it and try to fix that one up. In this example, we don't have any errors here, so that's run successfully with the validation. So I'm just going to hit that import rows button, and that will essentially go into an importing state. And it's going quite quickly there just because I had one row of data, so it's already imported against that job. So if we navigate over to that actual job here, so job import demo is the one that I had in that spreadsheet. We can scroll down and we can see that particular cost, which has been added from my spreadsheet. So just a handy way to import data in there into the product quickly and in bulk. And as I said, we'll be going and adding as many of those as we can just to give you some more flexibility there. Okay, the other one that we have added into, I guess, the jobs page. We know a few of you, there was some commentary around just the default sorting in lists. Like this job manager drop down, wasn't alphabetized. So now those lists are alphabetized just to make it a little bit easier to navigate. The complete field for tasks, we have added that in as a default field into your task table. So if we go and add a particular task into that table there, you'll see that in my example here, you do have that complete option to tick and complete the actual task item on the job. We were getting some feedback that people couldn't find that. We have added this little indicator that you can click on this cog here to try to find some fields that you might be used to seeing or that you didn't know you could add into this table. So clicking on this cog, you can actually add in some other information. If you've got custom fields, you can add those in and you can rearrange the columns into whatever order you'd like there. And that goes also for the cost items as well. By clicking on that cog down here, you can go and adjust and pull things in and move them around as well. The other thing we've added is if you have a supplier on a particular cost here, we can go and add a supplier and we can save that. That is now going to show by default. So you can see that supplier just sitting underneath, and that's there as well with sort of, the purchase order information if you have POs. The other one that we've been working on quite significantly is the job financial summary. So we know that there was some data that wasn't perfectly aligning to Workflow Max 1 migrated data. And we spent quite a bit of time updating this information so that it was going to align for us, align between Workflow Max 1. So do have a look at those. If you're seeing any sort of discrepancies there or something funny, please do reach out to support. Even if we're not responding right away, we know there's quite a backlog, and we are seeing those tickets coming in, and we're trying to find any one of those sort of edge cases where things might not align. So we're still working very hard on that just to make sure it's all looking good. But for the most part, we're getting some solid feedback on job financial summaries and estimated billings and the standard reports now lining up for everyone. Another one on the financials tab is purchase orders. We had a few people that create draft POs without any line items, but they just use it as a placeholder. They weren't showing here. If you add a draft PO without any line items, that will now show under this financials tab. So that one's resolved if you were doing that. The collaboration manager, if you're emailing into the product, if you click on that email button for collaboration manager and you're sending emails and you want to file them against jobs or clients or anywhere in there, this collaboration manager is now pushing documents into the connected document management solutions. So if you integrate to Google Drive and Dropbox or anywhere else for that matter that we integrate with, those documents will push through into the appropriate integrated solution. The staff time summary reports, so if we flip over to some of the reports, we did have an issue with this one, I think, in terms of the summary information down the bottom with just the billable versus non-billable time and those percentages. So if you scroll down to the bottom here, this wasn't calculating quite correctly. So do have a look at that if you've migrated over, just making sure that those numbers are aligning for you. But we've spent quite a bit of time on these time reports to make sure that those are lining up well and calculating correctly. So those should be up to date now in terms of any reconciliation that you might be doing there. Another one we've updated is the merge functionality. So client to be merged here. If I go into a client, you can see under client actions, there is the ability to merge client. So I can choose a particular client to merge into, and I can delete this existing client I'm on. Any invoices, jobs, quotes, any other artifacts that are to do with that client, and any contacts will get pushed off of that client. They'll get archived and they'll get moved over to this new client. So now those jobs and quotes will be seen against this particular client here. Okay, well, that pretty much does it for our product update this week. Reporting still is a very large part of what we are looking at the moment. I do have a demo sort of time report here for the purposes of looking at this one for today. We're spending quite a bit of time just optimizing these and making sure that they are appearing quickly for everyone with lots of data. There's still lots of work to be done there in terms of optimizing these and getting them to load, especially with grouping and filters, but we're making good progress and we are seeing some positive results from people saying that they're able to get some grouping working, they're able to get some filters working, or they can export to a CSV here and sort of play with the data from there. We have added links back in here. So if you click on any one of these links, for example, for a job, you can click on that and it will open the job in a new tab. We know that was a handy one in Workflow Max 1 as well, just to navigate around. Yeah, we've also got that for a few other fields like client and other areas as well. Okay, well, that will pretty much do it for today. We will continue to do these updates as regularly as we can, and looking forward to the next one. Thanks.